Hey, team players, welcome to another breakdown. As we know with fantasy football, it's really a breakdown of the teams on the field, and we can go through all the individual stats, which we certainly will, but we want to break down how do the teams individually play. And in this episode, the Buffalo Bills. Now, I need to start outright saying this, that everyone in Miami hates me because of what we said yesterday about how they're a very fragile team. If Tyreek or Waddle go down, they're in big trouble. You look at the Buffalo Bills roster from a distance, without Stefon Diggs, there is no one for Allen to get this ball to consistently and well. And I'm going to start off here with Gabe Davis. Last year, he threw the ball to Gabe Davis nearly 100 times, just a tick below it, and Gabe Davis brought in less than 50 catches. Gabe Davis is an all-or-nothing machine who was prone to injury last year and is one of these types of guys that takes 2 weeks to come back. There's some players that they can come back immediately. You never feel it. Gabe Davis ain't that. So if you do draft Gabe late, make sure you know you can't start him the week after an injury return. It's just a fact of his game. So when I look at this, Buffalo Bills are also one of the bottom tier offensive lines. Mm-hmm. So they don't have that going for them. Mm-hmm. Their quarterback ran 120 times last year and got injured. Mm-hmm. So I firmly suspect that ain't going to happen as much. Mm-hmm. So when I look at the Bills moving forward here, I think that these guys are going to be a lot like Kansas City in the regards of saying, we know we have one stud who can catch the ball, but it might be smarter, given the difficulty of this schedule, knowing that Buffalo has the fourth hardest schedule, to say, we don't need to play a shootout every game. We can actually run the ball with someone other than Josh Allen. And I believe that's the direction Buffalo as a football team needs to go. And therefore, as a result, everyone not named Diggs, I am much more downgraded upon as compared to their average draft value overall, with maybe the exception of Damian Harris, because I love him.
So let's start with Josh Allen here.
Okay.
Josh Allen is getting drafted as the second or third quarterback taken, usually overall, and that's happening in the third, fourth round of fantasy football drafts. Mm-hmm. Josh Allen's numbers as a quarterback alone, just passing the ball, puts him in the tier of Justin Herbert, who's getting drafted in the fifth, sixth, seventh rounds of fantasy football drafts. The thing that sets Allen on a different stratosphere than, let's say, Patrick Mahomes is that a lot of Allen's points are coming from rushing the ball. As you said, Joe, 124 rushes, 762 yards, and 7 touchdowns. A lot of those touchdowns,
I don't think a single running back on Miami did that last year.
There's a couple of those touchdowns that were from 15 yards or more, but a lot of those touchdowns
came from
the goal line. Now, you go out and you get Damian Harris, who is a very good running back. People, say he's a plotter, between the tackles runner, but that's exactly what Buffalo needed because James Cook is more of the explosive type outside on the numbers. Now, if you look at projections that people are projecting for Cook, they're projecting a modest improvement in rushing from 500 to 700 yards, a slight uptick in touchdowns, and about 20 more receptions than he had last year.
And I believe those projections are so wrong.
Well, it makes him solely average at best, and it makes him at his draft position a decent enough value for him. Damian Harris, Joe and I really like Damian Harris. We think he's going to be a goal line back. We think he has the potential to get 10, 11 touchdowns.
I think he has the potential of taking the job.
From that goal line. He has the potential to take the role over from Cook as well. But the jury's still out on that. So what we need to look at here is Allen. Is Allen going to put up 7 touchdowns and 762 yards rushing next year? No. I think a more realistic expectation for Allen would be the numbers that Mahomes put up last year, which would be about 400 yards rushing, 3 or 4 touchdowns that are more not as a pure rusher that are just scrambling out of the pocket to get there. Which then, if you take his numbers as both a passer and say, let's project 34 touchdowns, 33 touchdowns, something like that, and let's project 4 rushing touchdowns with 400 yards. That still puts him in the conversation to be, the third or fourth quarterback taken.
Mm-hmm.
However, if those numbers rushing go down anymore into the 300s or they dip down even more, that doesn't necessarily equate for him to be better as a passer, because that just means that maybe Buffalo's run game got better. Buffalo ran the ball slightly more than Miami last year, 40.56% of the time.
Mm-hmm. Which counts all those scrambles.
Yeah, in comparison to the pass plays, which is 59%. So when you look at all this, you say to yourself, okay, well, now that Buffalo has what we think is a somewhat decent rushing attack, better than Miami's, we think.
Mm-hmm. I don't think it's comparable.
Allen has the opportunity to run the ball, but he doesn't have to. He can stay in the pocket more. Does that equate for more targets for Diggs? Does that equate for more targets for Davis? Does it equate for more targets for a guy like Sheffield or Shakir? And where I see this whole thing at with Allen is I can definitely see if Allen doesn't have to worry about running, that there's a good chance that Diggs' targets, and this is a good conversation for Diggs is going as next year's number 1 wide receiver. I can see an uptick in Diggs' targets. I can see him going from 154 to potentially what Hill got this year in 170, and he was at 108 receptions. I can see that going up. The only thing about Diggs is those touchdowns. So he had 11 last year. Touchdowns are difficult to predict, but we obviously know that he's Allen's favorite target. We know this because the numbers tell us it. 13.2 on the usage, whereas Davis got 17.4 yards per catch, but he only caught the ball 48 times. So that's telling me that he is doing more long distance with him than he is with Diggs. And so I, as a fantasy football player, am looking at these numbers and saying, okay, Diggs is absolutely first-round talent. In auction leagues, I have seen some ludicrous things happening where Jefferson, Cup, and Chase are getting drafted at like $100, like
25% of the budget, yeah.
And Diggs, for some reason, because people are just going all in on those top players, he gets taken a little bit later, and he's getting the auction value on him is so much lower. And you're looking at the numbers, you're saying that doesn't even make any sense. He's being drafted in like the 8th, 9th positions in drafts. Sometimes he falls down the turn. But if I am at the turn, or I'm close to the turn at like the 8th position, and I have the opportunity to take Diggs, I'm taking him all day, every day.
Yeah.
Despite having the 4th hardest schedule, because of the way that Buffalo is coached, there's more of a consistency in the coaching that I am feeling more comfortable with Diggs at that position than I was with Hill at 5, because Hill has that legal trouble. If Hill didn't have that legal trouble, maybe I'd start thinking about them on the same.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Bob.
Diggs has more upward momentum, whereas Hill's upward momentum is kind of stifled because if he's not able to replicate 170 targets with 119 catches, and mind you, that's only about 9 more catches than Diggs got, and Diggs got done it on less targets. Now Diggs has way more touchdowns, but his yardage total is a little bit different. Diggs falls under on the yardage total. But who's to say with those 9 more receptions that Diggs wouldn't have gotten 1,700 yards?
So when the game's on the line, the ball goes to Diggs. He's their Michael Jordan. Everyone knows it, and basically no one can stop it. And as Buffalo is leaning into Allen running less, Allen gets more accurate. And that's the other thing that needs to be pointed out. Diggs is putting the work in with a higher rate of balls being accumulated to him. So I find it's going to be very difficult to make a world where this season doesn't end with Stefon Diggs being one of the top 3 receivers in the NFL. And the fact that he's going 5th to 8th receiver overall, to me, just screams value. And that's where I'm with you, Bob. If you're a receiver early guy, Diggs should be your list. But there's a word of caution with the Buffalo system all over. We just discussed yesterday how Miami only converted 35% of their third downs last year. Buffalo converted 50%. So it is much more likely that Buffalo returns to the 45%, which is about league average, then continuing to push it higher, which ultimately, the reason I bring this up means less snaps for the offense. And does that mean it's going to be exactly that way? Probably, because as they're looking to lean more upon the run, and I do believe that while their rushing numbers at 40%, which is pretty close to league average, when we take out the Allen effect and we replace it with either James Cook or Damian Harris, you're going to end up with the possibility that they're going to be kicking more. They'll be punting more. And then that leads to less overall snaps. I do think the difficulty of schedule helps Diggs, though.
And I was just going to say that. So I get that point for sure, because if you're running the ball a little bit more, yes, you're going to get a couple of those targets taken away from you. But the difficulty of schedule going down for Buffalo, whereas I think it hurts Miami, I think it hurts Hill a little bit. I don't think it hurts Hill a lot, but I think it hurts Hill a little bit worse than Diggs, because I think Buffalo is going to be slightly more competitive in those hard-fought games.
That's because Josh Allen can transcend to
Miami would be.
Yeah.
And you're looking at it, after Tampa, you get Cincinnati, Denver, Jets, Philly, Kansas City, Dallas, Chargers, New England, and Miami. And
very hard schedule.
And what we cautioned against a couple episodes ago too is when guys are in bad weather. Well, if you're looking at when the weather potentially will turn bad in Buffalo, they are only playing. So their home games at the end of the year are Jets, Dallas a couple weeks after that.
That's a month apart.
And then a home game against New England when you're in your fantasy playoffs. So the other games are at Chargers. It's going to be beautiful. Dallas is going to be at home, which could be dangerous for you if you take them. Kansas City is going to be in Kansas City, so it could be cold. Philly is going to be in Philly, so it could be cold, but not Buffalo cold.
Yeah. So the fact that their schedule is so road heavy for the last 7 games, the last 6 games, 4 of them are on the road. And for fantasy purposes, the only game that this is what Stefon Diggs owners had last year, and that's what they got terrified with, was in the playoffs. They didn't do anything because of the wind in Buffalo. Well, that New England game is the championship day. If you guys are in a league that's using your championship as week 17, that's in New England. That's at home. So that is the possibility fear with Diggs. The stretch of making the playoffs, there's no other weather concerns that I see this.
And those games are going to be competitive. And when games are competitive, Diggs is always involved.
Always.
And he's never going to be eliminated fully from a game unless it's weather related and Allen truly can't get him the ball. And so that's one of the things where we say, Diggs. And this is one of the things also that I'm all against Gabe Davis, and I've never been a Gabe Davis truther. I think that in best ball leagues, he's not a bad pick.
He's much better in best ball.
Best ball leagues, because if he fires up for those 30 points, you're winning that week. Daily fantasy, there's a good chance that Gabe Davis will make our lineups in daily fantasy. But
because he's too volatile, you get those ups and downs.
In my rankings, I don't have him high because less than 50 receptions, 48 receptions, and almost 1,000 yards, and that's 17.4 yards per catch. That is an unsustainable amount of yards per catch.
It is. And they really were aided by he had 3 touchdowns over 80 yards,
and he played like he had like 200 yards reception against the Steelers that 1 week. So. Taking all of that out, it then becomes very pedestrian and not somebody you really would want to take at all. But
the argument for him is, which is my argument every time, he's by far the number 2 receiver for Josh Allen.
Yeah.
But that part can't be discounted. The potential for Gabe Davis is through the roof if he stays healthy.
Right.
Because he, like I said, him being a 2-week recovery really does hold him back.
And then the tight end situation is you are most likely not drafting Dawson Knox because Dalton Kincaid is now on the roster. But we're not taking rookie tight ends.
Never.
Let somebody else take the rookie tight end because it's not – Dalton Kincaid is probably not going to end up as a top 8 tight end this year or a top 10 tight end this year. And if you're drafting him, it seems like a wasted roster space.
And also, by the time he turns it on, you'll be able to see it coming. You'll be able to stream him.
Exactly.
That's just a fact of life. One last thought I want to say this before we wrap up this episode. This is about Cook. He had a lot. He didn't immediately hit their roster and take off last year. He's going to be there for the full season. And the most improvement that you get in the NFL is entering your second year. And that's what he's going to be doing this year. Now, this is why you want to pay attention during training camp on who wins the job. Because I do believe that the running back that gets the primary ball snaps in Buffalo is getting 1,200 yards. I think that's happening without a fact because Allen won't. So if it does end up being Cook, and I can get a 1,200-yard rusher in like the 13th round, he's a potential league winner. Cook is one of my. The Buffalo running back room, whoever ends up being the starter, is the guy you want if you're doing late end running backs because they could be elite.
So this is one of the things about Buffalo, and it's happened almost every year, that if you are drafting a team out of the AFC East as running backs, and you go with that wide receiver early or wide receiver heavy lineup or a hero running back lineup, anything where you're only taking one running back in the first couple of rounds, it always shakes down that the AFC East running back situations are rife with possibilities for you. You could get a couple different options. And there was a year where I drafted both Buffalo running backs, and then there was a third Buffalo running back. The top two Buffalo running backs ended up getting, not doing well, and the third one came out of the woodwork. So you look at Buffalo's room right now, it has Cook, Harris, Latavius Murray, and Nyheim Hines. We like Nyheim Hines. He disappointed us last year. But those are four running backs that if Cook wins the job, it's his to keep. However, I do think the usage of Damian Harris in the red zone and the goal line could be a big problem in terms of Cook's overall value later on down the road.
Which is why you're getting him so late in drafts.
I see Cook realistically probably hitting, if they do split time, Cook's probably going to hit like 800 yards, maybe 900 yards, 6 touchdowns. And I think Damian Harris, if he ends up taking a goal line role, could probably end the season with maybe like 600 yards and 12 touchdowns. There's a perfect possibility that all of those Josh Allen numbers will fall on these two guys, depending on the usage of them.
And then what happens as a result? Josh Allen should be drafted in the 7th round, and these guys should be taken around the same spot.
You should totally keep your eyes out for Cook and Harris. Now, Cook's like the peripherals on Cook is that he's super explosive, but there could be some efficiency concerns. There could be some stamina concerns because he hasn't.
Well, he hit the rookie wall. That's the thing. The rookie wall's real.
And so a realistic expectation for him, you're taking him low. You're taking him in the mid-rounds. Mid to late rounds. And so you're not really investing a lot. The guy you're investing a lot in would be Diggs and Allen. And that's why we spent a lot of time talking about them. We caution you against Allen at his position, but we are really on board with Diggs because we think that
I'd take him 5th overall.
We think that the improvement of running back would definitely help Diggs in the long term to improve those, to become a little bit more efficient even as well.
Yeah. Like I said, I would really strongly consider Diggs 5th overall between J-Jeff, Kelsey, Run CMC, and Chase. I think right there is where Diggs should be. People are going to think that's crazy having him ahead of Eckler, having him in front of Hill and Kupp, but he's going to end up finishing as a top 3 receiver. Might as well draft him like one.